David, what do you make of the appellate court's decision yesterday to reverse the Illinois Jobs Now program, also known as the capital construction package?
I think it was a real surprise. It came out of the clear blue. What's at work here is a requirement in the Constitution that each bill only deal with one subject. Almost every state has that requirement. It's put in there designed to prevent politicians from doing what they call log rolling. In other words, you vote for your bill, or I'll vote for your bill and you vote for mine, and it's designed to try to put a stop to that. Legislators know that. They construct these bills to meet that constitutional test, and then out of the clear blue comes this interpretation. Many lawyers are disagreeing with it. It's on appeal. Lower courts have approved this. So this may be an outlier ruling. This may be an exception, and my guess is that this Illinois Supreme Court is going to say no. This program is fine.
But suppose they did not say that, how could legislators retool it without having to go back to the drawing board on this?
I don't think they can. I mean, if the Supreme Court should uphold that, then I think you're back in the debate over how you pay for this program. And all of a sudden we're back to the races on a debate on video poker and raising taxes. And remember, this would then come after the legislature just imposed the largest tax increase in the state's history. And the language in this bill was passed well before this latest tax debate. People are not in a very good mood about taxes right now because of that. So you'd have to conduct the debate over a new funding mechanism for this in this environment post-income tax increase. It'd be very difficult.
Now, it's interesting, you talk about the tax increase, and that was one of the suggestions that was brought up during the very long debate about this piece of legislation when it was in the House. Do you feel like with the 20 Republican votes that this bill had, might be able to support a slight bump in the tax rate to be able to fund these projects?
I don't think so. I think some of those Republicans are no longer in the legislature.
Right.
And other Republicans, I mean, we've had a 2010 election in which the Tea Party movement has dominated the Republican Party. The Republican Party is solidly anti-tax. I don't think any Republican candidate or any Republican in the legislature would find it very easy to vote for any tax increase right now.
Mm-hmm. Before we get on to the tax hikes that were passed, what impact do you see this ruling having on future construction projects packages?
Well, we have to see what the court says about whether this is legal or not. And it could if the Supreme Court says no, this is fine way to do it, it won't have much impact at all. But I think it will have a sobering effect on lawmakers when they start doing these bonding plans or construction plans. What are we doing this for? How are we drafting the language? These are important things to get right, because you're going to go borrow money for this. And people who loan you money, the bondholders, they really like every I dotted and T crossed, and if they just don't want any problems with this. So I think it will make lawmakers a little more careful in the future.
Now, the current income tax rate that you were just talking about, those taxes are now in place. Been told that it's supposed to help us make up for the deficit. Was the tax increase too large?
Politically, it might have been, but from a fiscal standpoint, it wasn't enough. I mean, if Illinois has a $13–15 billion deficit somewhere in there, and you've passed an income tax increase and some other tax increases that are $6, $7, $8 billion, you're only halfway there. So, this state is not going to tax its way out of this deficit, and it's not going to cut its way out of the deficit. What surprised me about this whole package was I thought they would cut first. I thought they would ask for severe reductions in budgets, just to show people what's at stake here, to see if people really, in fact, do want to lay off lots of teachers and lots of public workers, and really show voters that you're not going to solve the state's fiscal problems just by buying the paper clips at Sam's Club. that this is involving a fundamental restructuring of government. Instead, they did it the other way around. They decided, we're going to get some revenue, we've got to get some revenue fast. The reason they did that was the bond market, we were just talking about, the people that loaned the state money, went to them and said, the game is up. We're not going to loan you any more money. We can't afford, you're too risky. And so that was an incentive that hadn't been there in the past. I think it scared lawmakers to be one of the worst managed states in the country and facing the prospect of not even being able to do cash flow borrowings. So they raised revenues. And politically, Barton, you know, whether you're voting for if you're voting for a 1 percentage point increase in the income tax or a 2 percentage point increase in the income tax, the political hit is still the same.
Did the Democratic leadership wait too long to try and get Republican support for this? As you know, this tax hike went through without any Republican support, but that was something that some were holding out and hoping might happen further down the road, especially during lame duck session. And it still didn't happen. Did the Democrats wait too long?
They might have. You could certainly make that case, and I think it's a little bit like the Republicans on health care and Barack Obama. And they kept sort of stringing him along and saying, well, if you do this, we'll talk to you. And they had lots of meetings. And after a while, the Democrats wind up saying, wait a minute, you're just leading me on. You keep moving the goalposts. You're playing rope-a-dope with me. And so I think then at some point, then it did reach a critical mass at the end of the session where you have the bond markets effectively saying to the state, we're not loaning you any more money. Democratic leaders saying, we've got to do this ourselves. We're not going to have any more votes after the new legislature comes. So it forced them to act. Well, one other thought, Barton, part of this, though, is you know, I liken it to cooking a bowl of chili. You put a lot of hot ingredients in the pot, and then what do you do with it? You let it simmer for a while, and at some point, it becomes fit to eat. And I think a lot of tough issues like that are that way. They have to gestate, they have to marinate, they have to simmer for a while before legislative leaders can actually come in and put together enough votes to pass something. So I think that's what happened here.
All right. Well, we'll see how this advances in the future. We'll wait the Supreme Court decision. Thanks,
Okay,
David.
Mark. Okay.